like to call the meeting to order this evening, 7 o'clock, Michelle. We'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, I'd like to move to the approval of the minutes from the November 19 meeting. Does anyone have any additions, corrections, changes, comments about those meeting minutes? Nobody? Can I have a motion to, Sandy?
Seconded.
Johanna seconded. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous, Michelle. Thank you, everybody. First on the agenda tonight, we're going to move to Forbes Island. Welcome back, Ben.
Thank you. So Ben Harold with CHA Consulting back before you with the Forbes Island project. No changes since the last time we were here. We provided the summary of key DD updates and revisions. And I guess I'll save your time and not go through a recap of the project since we've been through it a couple times already. And I'll just open it up to the board for any questions.
Okay. Yeah, so you sent all the paperwork in, which we all saw. Thank you very much for answering Jamie's questions. Greg, did you have any additional engineering comments?
Very minor comments, and we do need to walk it with the new village manager.
Okay.
And just kind of just confirm that he's been just busy, just confirm, make sure he's happy with the utilities where they're moving to. That.
Okay.
So I mean, if nothing that you'd ever notice.
Okay.
So I mean, if you want to prove it contingent on final engineering, we'll get that resolved in the next couple 3 weeks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does anybody else on the board have any additional questions?
No.
Nobody? Okay, since it looks like you've met all of the conditions and are back again to see us, and Greg has some engineering, I'm wondering if I could have a motion to refer the project to the village board for modifications of the PDD in accordance with the plans as submitted, with the condition of satisfactory finalization of the engineering concerns.
I'll make a motion.
Of what I said.
Yeah, I'll make a motion of what Terry said to recommend this to the village board.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Sandy?
Again, refer that.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous again, Michelle. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
We look forward to seeing things happening there.
We do too.
He's like, thank you.
That was quick. Okay, now I'd like to move on to Bronze Foundry. Would you like to give us kind of an overview of where you are currently? Excuse me.
My name's Brody Smith. I'm an attorney at Bond, and you can see our team seated to the right here. Charlie Brewer and Brian from Huber Brewer and Steve Rietzka, engineer, who's previously presented to the board from EDR. The only adjustment, I won't go over any ground that we've already covered. The only adjustment that I'll point out since the last meeting is that there was one section of the property that was carved out of the site plan that reduced slightly the number of units to 255 and the parking spaces to 435. And Greg is pointing at the spot there. But other than that, none of that changes any of the infrastructure of the plan. It doesn't change the stormwater, it doesn't change the general configuration of the plan. We did receive back our comments from the DOT. The DOT agrees with the recommendations. One other slight adjustment that was made was this driveway. It was moved back this direction a little bit to get it further away from the bridge to improve site plans at the recommendation of the DOT. And those are really the only two adjustments.
Okay. With that, I wanted to note to everyone that we're at the environmental review stage, the seeker stage with this project, which is the first step in a series of other reviews that the project will go through before moving forward with the zone change and the PDD. So with that, I would like to open it up to my board to review some of the things that we see to do with the seeker. Basically, what we're saying is we're not seeing impacts that can't be mitigated. And we're talking about the removal and excavation of the waste from the contamination in the brownfield. And I wanted to know if the board has any commentary or questions on that.
If I can just
Yep.
intercede. So we've got the environmental assessment form, part 2,
Yep.
that has been preliminary filled out, subject to this board making a determination. And what Terry is going over are the items that engineering, legal, and this board has previously expressed concern about with respect to seeker. So those are the things that Terry's going through. Otherwise, the things have been marked as no or small impact may occur. So the first thing was FEAF Part 2, Item 1D. So that's what she's referring to. So
Yeah,
go
we
ahead,
got
Terry. I
copies
just
of
wanted
the-
to give
No,
you
that's
a
fine,
better
Jamie.
background for you.
That's fine. I assumed that was obvious, but it probably wasn't. So let's talk about each of these items that are areas of concern for us that can be dealt with, can be mitigated. But the first one, as I mentioned, is the removal of the 1,000 tons of waste from the site that's currently a brownfield. Does anybody have any commentary about that process and what it means for the village or?
Well, I think it's nice somebody's doing something with it.
Cleaning
Something
it up.
Cleaning it up. So not only is this a good project, and it's going to be rezoned I think in a more positive way instead of it being industrial, but as a result, the area is going to be cleaned up too. I mean, it's quite a thing to take on. I think that is a big job, but positive job.
What's the timeline for that process? I would ask, like the cleanup process.
I don't know if they know
Oh,
that
you don't know,
yet.
yeah, you don't know the extent of it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your comment.
She was
I was
wondering
just
what the
wondering,
timeline would be
like how long
for
that would take
the environmental
to
cleanup.
clean up the.
So, let me be specific about what you're talking about. So there were 2 studies that were conducted. There was both were conducted by CHA. A phase 1 investigation goes through history, a lot of documents, interviewing individuals. And through that phase 1 investigation, it was determined that testing was conducted sampling was conducted in May 1979 and June 1986 that indicated there were no significant levels of contamination on the site, and the property received a no further action status letter from the DEC in 1990. It's not eligible for the brownfield program because it's not contaminated enough. Now, my client did a phase 2, which was further investigation, and did their own sampling. And they found, by and large, no contamination. The only thing they found was slight exceedances of metals in certain areas.
Right.
And CHA recommended that certain steps be taken when excavating in those areas. And specifically, what those steps were was that site cover should be placed along green spaces. A plan should be in place to address groundwater in the event that it's encountered that may be impacted by metals. So there is no 1,000 yards of anything being removed. The site is by and large clean. Yeah.
Jamie, you have anything to say about that?
About what exactly?
The commentary for the FEAF of the removal of the 1,000 tons of waste that was in the document?
That was a determination that there probably would be, Greg. Do you think that's not the case then?
That particular thing was whether,
I think there's a question in the part 2,
Yeah.
whether we triggered that. And I think the answer to that question is no to small. I don't think there's 1,000 tons of contamination anywhere in this project.
So we did not know the answer to that. We did put it as no or small.
I think that's fine, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it has the
So
potential
it-
to involve the excavation removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. So it's a large enough site that I would say you've got to look at that as there's the potential for.
Right, so
but that's unrelated
the
to
resolution
contamination.
says
Right.
may involve.
Right. That's item 1D, part 2.
Part
So
2,
what that's referring to is that's referring to the idea that there would be digging involved in
Right.
building these buildings, but that's not referring to contamination.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of let you go on anyway because it's going to come up and that
It
was a
will.
question.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
that's fine, and not to confuse the two, but for that answer, the answer is no or small. And then, this discussion will continue.
Okay. We move on to part 2, item 1E. The proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases, but will be managed by a phasing plan that will address any potential impacts.
I think we've heard that that's what we would expect to see throughout
Right.
this
Right.
process, and knowing that phase 1 was what we're seeing on the screen. And there could be subsequent phases that would be a part of that, but and that's what we would expect to see. Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah,
Would you agree with that?
I would agree.
Any commentary?
Part 1 of the EAF does state that it is likely that the construction will occur over a period of time in excess of 1 year.
Right.
But I don't think that, I think it's safe to say that given the access to the site, the lack of any sort of on-site impacts, we're not building in the midst of existing development, it's vacant property, there's no, we would argue that there's no to small impact due to the idea.
That's how we
that
have it listed, Brody.
Yeah.
That's. So then we're on to part 3, impacts on surface water. Wetlands. The applicant has identified the presence of wetlands on the property through the wetland and stream delineation report prepared by its consultant EDR dated September 2024. The delineation report, EDR conducted field delineations of wetlands and streams at the property on October 16 and October 17, 2023, and during a USAGCE site visit on August 12, 2024. 6 small wetlands totaling 0.9 acres and 3 streams, 2 of which were ephemeral drainage features, were identified. All but one of the wetlands were determined to be non-jurisdictional in terms of federal jurisdiction by a determination made by the Army Corps of Engineers dated September 18, 2024. None of the wetlands are expected to fall under New York State DEC jurisdiction. The project was designed to minimize impacts on wetlands. The applicant shall be permitted to disturb less than 0.5 acres of wetlands pursuant to a nationwide general permit issued by the Army Corps of Engineers. Surface water. The applicant has prepared a draft stormwater pollution prevention plan, SWIP, dated October 24, 2024. The project plans and the SWIP provide that the collection of stormwater from development areas and the existing wetlands/streams on site will be kept separate. The project design includes stormwater detention ponds, underground pipes to convey stormwater to those ponds, and treatment of stormwater prior to discharge. Site grading shall direct all on-site developed runoff to the proposed stormwater management facilities. The limited reduction of wetland areas on the property will be compensated for by the creation of additional storage capacity adjacent to the wetlands through site grading. All culverts and infrastructure associated with the wetlands and streams on the site will be sized to ensure that water is conveyed across the property at the same rate as existing conditions. The project design includes storm drains and grading necessary to prevent stormwater from flowing onto roadways, and further engineering review to prevent stormwater from review of the SWIP, stormwater hydrology modeling, and the design of the stormwater management and conveyance facilities will continue at a later stage of the village review process as the design is further scrutinized and refined. Adequate space is available to adjust the storage capacity of the depicted stormwater management facilities as necessary.
Nothing to add, that's perfect.
Yeah, so we did a preliminary review. Well, we did a review of the preliminary SWIP. Some minor comments, and there'll be adjustments made as the design progresses. In general, our key concerns were, is there space to do what is required? And then as we get to more detailed design, we'll look for opportunities to ensure that we can provide more storage or mitigation for some of the adjacent flooding. And under no circumstances will we allow anything that will increase flooding. Hopefully we can actually try to mitigate some of the existing flooding.
And that's covered in your report from December 9th, right?
Yep.
2024. Okay. Thank you, Craig. Anybody have any questions about stormwater?
And I know that came up, and really nice to see it addressed. I mean, and as they get into the project, adjust accordingly what they need to do. So I think that's a perfect explanation as to the concerns that were brought forward, I believe. So I think it's a great response, yeah.
And if they can improve the flooding for the neighbors.
Right, because I know that was a point that was brought up. I
By
agree.
several of the neighbors, so.
Yeah, that to me was one of the key elements of
Yeah.
concern from the public hearing.
I agree.
To be addressed. The wetlands impacts, I know that had previously been shared maybe October, November, and I see it on the new rendering that's out there, so that was to be expected as well.
Right.
Andrew, anything?
No,
You're all set?
I'm grateful. It's actually kind to kind of be designing some things in a way to actually gain favor of neighbors and help their situation. So,
I would agree.
my compliments to that approach.
I would agree.
Okay, then we'll move on to part 2, item 4A. The proposed action may require new water supply wells or create additional demand on supplies from existing water supply wells. The plan shows up to 5% increase in demand. However, it has been determined that the village has the capacity to handle the impact through the village system. Further, Onondaga County Department of Water Environment Protection has noted that WEP's Capacity Assurance Program shall evaluate requests for sewer service connections to ensure the sewer system can handle the additional flow of wastewater. WEP requires capacity assurance reviews for all new lateral connections to existing sewer mains and for the reuse of existing laterals before they can be reviewed and approved by the Onondaga County Health Department. The applicant is required to submit a capacity assurance review to WEP to comply with any directives of WEP and ACWA. Do you have any comments on that, Greg?
And additionally to that, there's a 1-to-1 offset that's required by WEP for their sewer generation relative to I&I type mitigation. So infiltration and flow, that is coming in through either improperly designed or faulty sewer mains, they'll have to do something that offsets a one-to-one mitigation of what they are actually generating. So that's in addition to that.
Okay, good to know. Questions, anybody?
Again, that was a point that was brought up to the residents, and I think there's a plan for it, and that it's good news that we can handle it, the capacity, so I'm glad that was cleared up as well. So it's a great explanation.
Okay. Part 2, item 5, impact on flooding. It is noted that there is currently flooding on and adjacent to the site. However, grading and final site design and all matters noted in the SWIP will result in a lesser impact and may assist in mitigation of the current condition. So that's kind of ties to what we talked about a few minutes ago. So if there aren't any changes, I'll move on to part 2, item 7B. The applicant has shown that it will mitigate any impact to the Indiana bat, and the applicant has examined the site for any presence of eagle nesting sites, and none have been found. Should any be found in the future, all regulations pursuant to the DEC shall be complied with.
That's for the endangered species.
Endangered
Part of
species,
the
right?
Environmental review.
Anybody have any questions or comments on that one?
I guess what's the mitigation for the impact on the bat? Is it building bat houses or?
The main thing is avoidance of roosting habitat especially during the summer. So
Yeah, there's a window of time that you can cut trees and things so that it doesn't disturb the
if there
habitat.
were Indiana bat, like actual caves on site would be a different story.
Yeah.
But there's none. So
It's not
mitigation would be
the
limited.
micron thing. It's not the same.
No,
Issue they're having over there.
So I would point out that the mapper showed us in the zone for eagles and sturgeon, even though, we're in dry
Probably
land.
not.
But not the Indiana bat.
Okay.
We weren't in the Indiana bat overlay.
Okay, all right. Well, if you find some, we're covered.
So I don't think we would have to worry about that because we're not in, unlike Micron,
Right.
this location is not a habitat for the bats.
Okay. Item 13, impact on transportation. The applicant provided a revised combined traffic impact assessment dated October 10, 2024. The TIS. The applicant also submitted updated traffic counts at the request of the board to compare counts taken in October 2024 with counts taken in March 2024. The additional traffic counts did not change the original conclusions of the TIS. The TIS concluded that the additional traffic generated by the proposed Bronze Foundry lofts and 19 Phillips Street apartments developments will have no significant impact on traffic operations in the area with the installation of a semi-actuated, uncoordinated traffic signal at the intersection of New York State Route 31 and Oneida Street. The signal would be expected to improve operations to some level at the adjacent intersection as left-turning traffic onto New York State Route 31 would likely divert to the signal. The TIS further concluded that there are adequate gaps in traffic and good sightlines available at the access points for each development to provide safe access. A review letter submitted by New York State DOT dated November 22nd, 2024 states that the DOT agrees with the installation of a traffic light at the corner of Route 31 and Oneida Street. The review letter suggested that the driveway providing access to Salinas Street be repositioned to the east to provide better sightlines. The project plans were adjusted consistent with the New York State DOT recommendation. Further, after discussion with the board, the applicant provided an internal traffic pattern on the site that will discourage cut-through traffic through the site.
Again, what a difference from the very first thing we saw to now.
Right.
You know, to go from Daytona 500 racetrack to something that fits and, you know, and looks like it's part of the village. And anytime you try to cut, that's why people are always looking for cut throughs, because there's generally not, the village isn't made to be this quick cut through, so.
Yeah, I mean,
That's-
I wouldn't want to cut through there, like, that's not gonna save much time, so, no, I think good job on that.
I would agree.
Well, good job, board, too,
Yes.
asking for less racetrack and mitigating the neighbors' questions and issues.
And of course, the big thing is the light.
Yeah, that's a big thing. That'll help actually the whole village,
I
honestly.
agree,
Correct.
yeah.
Because people always. Just fair.
All right, all set? Next item? Item 15E. The project will result in lighting that will create sky glow brighter than existing conditions. However, the requirement of night sky compliant lighting, fencing, trees, and buffers along the residential adjoining properties and a detailed lighting and landscaping plan will sufficiently mitigate the impacts. So we all know we have to have dark sky compliant lights. We're adding landscaping, fencing, that kind of thing to help shield the neighbors.
After watching the video last week, I did know that was how often people commented they could see the stars at night and they, you know, didn't want to lose that, so.
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
It's, maintains all that.
It does. Yeah. You no longer see that glow like at Budweiser. Item 16CYJK. CHA completed a full Phase 1 dated January 2024 that concluded this assessment revealed no recognized environmental conditions or controlled recognized environmental conditions in connection with the subject property. The applicant arranged to have CHA perform a limited Phase 2 subsurface investigation dated March 29. Sorry, typo. Dated March 29, 2024. A portion of the property was used as a foundry known as the Jardine Bronze and Aluminum Foundry Incorporated. The foundry operated from about 1944 until approximately 1992. Sampling conducted in May of 1979, which Brody read, and in June of 1986 indicated there were no significant levels of contamination, and the property received the no further action status in December 1990. The limited Phase 2 investigation revealed that presence of a small amount of metals at the property with only small exceedances. CHA recommends a plan should be in place to address groundwater that is encountered as it may be impacted by metals contamination. Additionally, community air monitoring should be in place during soil removal or disturbance activities, particularly within the areas where there are known impacts. Finally, appropriate site cover should be placed across all green spaces to prevent the potential human exposure to impacted surface soil post-redevelopment. The applicant's design includes generating a plan and implementing the above precautions during construction, including monitoring and site cover. The applicant is aware of one capped gas well on the site. Applicant advises that the well was properly decommissioned and is further required to comply with all DEC regulations related to well closure should any further wells be discovered. So for those of you that don't know that there were gas wells around the village, primarily with a lot of the manufacturing sites. So that's, I think there were 6 maybe around that were capped. It was kind of a let's do them all now thing. When they dug the basement for the new library, there was gas coming out of the ground, which we lit. So it was that point, because that was Morris Machine Works. So there were a lot of gas wells around the village. So that's what that refers to. Anybody have any questions or comments?
No, I was going to say, just was another key concern to some degree. We kind of covered it a little bit earlier too.
Yes, we
but, you
did.
know, similar types
And
of
Brody
impacts
did.
and similar types of concerns, so I think it hits the note of the feedback that we got from last week, or
Okay.
last month, we'll say.
All right, next. Item 17A and B. The project would develop land that is currently vacant. However, the previous use of the land and its current zoning are for industrial use. The proposed development of land for residential use will result in far fewer negative impacts on neighboring properties compared to any potential industrial use of the property, which is the only likely alternative for development. Additionally, the project may potentially cause the permanent population of the village to grow by slightly more than 5%. However, the village has sufficient services to allow for modest growth and residential use as a desirable use in this part of the village. Yeah, I think we all agree industrial is not what we want to see there.
No. That going back to that does not, industrial does not fit the
No.
village feel.
No.
And that's not something that we're looking to
Yeah.
have in that place.
Residential is much more desirable, I would agree.
Okay.
It, adds to the growth of the village, I mean, there's just,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
positives outweigh the negatives tenfold.
yeah, and I was telling Terry before we started, one of the site assessment forms that we had, there was pictures, overhead pictures of the property going back to 1938. There's nothing there. You know, and there's been significant growth that's occurred, primarily residential, you know, which long-term, this fits in with that. And I think about even the school board vote recently. And one of the hallmarks of that was the growth of the community and what they project and wanting to be ahead of the projected growth that's expected. And it's residential growth, it's not industrial growth. So they're not planning for future industry to be sitting here. I don't think anybody wants an Amazon. I mean, my wife would love it if there's an Amazon. But, you know, I don't think that's what we would necessarily want there. So I think this fits more into what the community plan would be for 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line.
Yeah, and agreed. You know, your point you made to me was Curtis Ave didn't even show up on
Yeah,
us because
there's
the
no
development
houses.
wasn't there. It was, the foundry was the edge of the village. So the edge of the village is now moved further out and the industrial site is now within what is the residential area. So it's a very, very good point, Chris. I would agree. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Part 2, item 18B. The village has sufficient capacity for this project. The school district has in recent years experienced a downturn in student population, creating the capacity for students that may come from this development. And as Chris alluded, we have a whole
Planning for that.
10-year plan, is it a 10-year plan? Nine.
9-year plan, 242 billion or million.
Right. Okay, so are there any other questions or comments from anyone about this? Jamie, do you have anything to add, or Greg?
I do not.
Okay. So should I move ahead with the findings of the board as we projected them?
I think that would be
Correct. All right. The final findings of this board with respect to seeker are as follows, and I apologize for all this reading, but we have to do it. The action will not result in a substantial adverse change in existing air quality, ground or surface water quality, or quantity, traffic or noise levels, a substantial increase in solid waste production. This is all not. A substantial increase in potential for erosion, flooding, leaching, or drainage problems. 2, the removal or destruction of large quantities of vegetation or fauna. Substantial interference with the movement of a resident or migratory fish or wildlife species. Impacts on a significant habitat area. Substantial adverse impacts on threatened or endangered species of animal or plant or the habitat of such species, or 3, other significant adverse impacts to natural resources. B, the action will not affect a critical environmental area as designated pursuant to 6, NYCRR Section 617.14G. Item C, the action will not conflict with the community's current plans or goals as officially approved or adopted. Item D, the action will not result in the impairment of the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources or of existing community or neighborhood character. Item E, the action will not result in a major change in the use of either the quantity or type of energy. Item F, the action will not result in the creation of a hazard to human health. Item G, the action will not result in a substantial change in the use or intensity of use of land, including architectural, open space, or recreational resources, or in its capacity to support existing uses. Item H, the action will not result in encouraging or attracting a large number of people to a place or places for more than a few days compared to the number of people who would come to such place absent of the action. The action will not result in the creation of a material demand for other actions that would result in one or more of the above consequences. The action will not result in changes in two or more elements of the environment, no one of which is a significant impact on the environment, but when considered together result in a substantial adverse impact on the environment. Item K, the action will not result in two or more related actions undertaken, funded, or approved by an agency, none of which has or would have significant impact on the environment, but when considered cumulatively would meet one or more of the criteria in 6 NYCRR Section 617.7C. The findings and declaration herein do not include or imply that final PDD acceptance and approval by the village board, nor site plan approval, nor subdivision approval by the planning board. All requirements of the village code and any other involved or interested agencies will be further undertaken and determined in the PDD, site plan review, and subdivision processes. The information available concerning the action was sufficient for the board to make its determination. So if everybody's all on board with that, is there any more discussion that we need to, anything else we need to talk about? Jamie?
Nope.
Greg?
Great job.
We're good? Okay, so with that point, I think we might be better to adopt the resolution that's before you that we've discussed at a couple meetings and have gone through thoroughly this evening. And I can read that and then we can take a vote on that. The board hereby approves and adopts the FEAF for the action, parts 1, 2, and 3, issues a negative declaration and will not require the preparation of an environmental impact statement for the action. The board hereby directs the chairperson to execute the FEAF and further authorizes that any filings and publication required by law of the negative declaration, including publishing notice of the negative declaration in the environmental notice bulletin, be made, including such other steps as may be necessary to carry out this resolution. This resolution shall take effect immediately. So at that point, I'd like to ask for a motion to adopt the foregoing resolution.
Which everyone has seen ahead of time and
Right.
commented on,
Yes.
and is X long.
Yes.
I didn't number the pages.
I don't know. I'm on 8, just what I have. Does anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, so you want me to just reread?
I'll make a
this?
motion of the adoption of the foregoing resolution.
Okay. So that's moved by Chris. Do I have a second?
A second.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Andrew? Andrew's a second. And duly put to a vote, results as follows. Motion to approve,
Aye.
Aye.
nay. It's unanimous, Michelle. Thank you. So, we've crossed that hurdle.
Well, on behalf of the applicant, we want to thank you for all the work you've obviously put into this, and particularly the village staff, Jamie and Greg. This was a very careful and textbook seeker review, so we appreciate it.
You're welcome. And we look forward to all of the next phases of approval that you'll be working for, but
The rest of the gauntlet.
it's a step. Okay? I don't think we have any other business this evening unless anybody else has a comment. I have a motion to close the meeting at 7:42.
I'll make the motion, John.
I'll second that.
Okay, Andrew second, Michelle. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, Michelle. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.